Let's be real for a moment. There's a scene every man recognizes instantly. That pause after you send a message. The weight of your phone in your hand. The late night thought you don't say out loud. Does she actually care? Or am I just convenient? Here's the part no one tells you. Most men are never taught what it looks like when a woman is quietly obsessed, because real obsession rarely looks dramatic. It looks controlled, measured, almost unintentional. And that's exactly why so many men overlook it. I'm not here to hype you up or sell illusions. I'm going to talk to you the way no one ever did, plainly, honestly, about the psychological patterns that show up before attachment becomes obvious. Because women learn early that visible desire can be risky. So when a woman feels strongly pulled toward a man, she doesn't chase recklessly. She observes. She studies. She subtly reshapes herself around him in ways only a grounded man notices. The first sign most men misunderstand completely is this. She remembers things you barely emphasized. Small details you mentioned casually. How you like your coffee. A random story you told weeks ago. A name you referenced once and never again. That isn't politeness. It isn't coincidence. That's selective attention. And selective attention is one of the earliest indicators of emotional fixation. The female brain doesn't store information randomly. It prioritizes what feels emotionally relevant. When she's quietly obsessed, your words stop being background noise and start becoming reference points. She's building an internal map of you long before she ever admits anything out loud. Then, it deepens. You'll notice she doesn't always reply immediately, but when she does, the conversation moves forward. She asks questions that draw more out of you, not surface questions, personal ones, questions about how you think, not just what you do. She isn't bored. She's gathering data because obsession, at its core, is about certainty. She wants to know who you are when no one is watching. Now, pay close attention to this part. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she creates emotional openings and then watches how you handle them. She might share something vulnerable, but lightly, like testing the water before stepping in. If you respond with calm presence and emotional steadiness, her attachment grows. If you rush, overreact, or try to escalate too fast, she pulls back. Not because interest faded, but because she doesn't feel safe expanding yet. Most men think obsession looks like non-stop texting, jealousy, or emotional chaos. That's insecurity, not obsession. Real obsession is quieter. It's restraint paired with intensity. It's her holding back the urge to reveal how much she's thinking about you. Here's the part that confuses men the most. When she's obsessed, she often treats you differently than other men, but not always more warmly. Sometimes, she's more composed, more careful, because your opinion suddenly matters. Your perception carries weight. And that shift confuses men who expect attraction to be loud and obvious. This is why emotionally disciplined men inspire deeper attachment. Not because they manipulate, but because they give her feeling space to grow without pressure. By the time a woman openly shows obsession, it's usually been there for a while. The signs appear first. Quiet, psychological, easy to miss if you're looking for drama instead of depth. There's another behavior that reveals almost everything, and most men completely misread it. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she begins adjusting her emotional rhythm to yours. Not imitation, in an obvious way, but alignment. If you're calm, she settles. If you pull back slightly, she becomes more attentive. If you're focused on your purpose, she respects your space instead of competing with it. That isn't coincidence. That's subconscious alignment. The female nervous system is highly responsive to emotional environments. When a woman doesn't care deeply, she stays centered on herself. Her mood leads. Her needs dominate. But when obsession starts forming, your emotional state becomes the reference point. She begins regulating herself around you. Watch how she reacts when you don't immediately validate her. A woman who isn't invested gets irritated or dismissive. A woman who is obsessed becomes reflective. She replays the interaction. She wonders if she misread something. She becomes more intentional next time. That mental replay loop is intense, and she wouldn't enter it unless you mattered. Here's a subtle sign almost no one mentions. She starts placing you into her future thinking without locking you into it. She'll say things like, "You'd probably get this," or "You'd be good at that," or "That reminds me of you." These aren't fantasies. She's testing how naturally you fit into her internal world. Women don't invite men into their mental space casually. When she's obsessed, she begins imagining your presence in moments you're not even part of yet, and she watches how you respond to the idea of us existing comfortably. Now, for something uncomfortable but important. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she becomes more sensitive to your approval, but hides it behind independence. She won't ask directly. Instead, she casually mentions achievements, opinions, or decisions, and watch your reaction closely. Not just your words, your tone, your energy, your presence. Approval from a man she doesn't value means nothing. Approval from a man she's attached to feels like validation of her identity, which makes it emotionally risky. You may also notice she defends you when you're not there. Subtly, she reframes comments, corrects assumptions, softens criticism. People protect what they feel bonded to, and emotional protection is one of the clearest signs of attachment. This is where many men ruin everything. They sense the shift and try to lock it down. They push for clarity, demand reassurance, ruse, labels. The moment pressure enters, her obsession doesn't disappear, it goes underground. Obsession needs space. It grows in freedom, not confinement. A woman who is obsessed but doesn't feel emotionally safe will seem contradictory. Warm one day, distant the next, not because she's playing games, but because she's managing an internal conflict, desire versus self. The men who benefit most from female obsession aren't the ones who chase it. They're the ones who stay grounded when they feel it. They don't rush, they don't inflate their ego. They stay calm, consistent. That steadiness is addictive because it offers something rare. Emotional stability paired with mystery. If this feels uncomfortably accurate, that's good. It means you're recognizing patterns you felt, but couldn't name. Female attachment doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself quietly through behavior that only makes sense once you know what to look for. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a moment where her behavior becomes almost paradoxical. She grows more careful with you, not less. Emotionally unaware men misread this and walk away right as attachment deepens. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she starts protecting the connection before it officially exists. She thinks before speaking, rereads messages, becomes aware of how her words might land, not from insecurity, but because your perception now matters more than her comfort. Obsession creates emotional risk, and the female mind minimizes risk when something valuable is at stake. So, instead of being reckless, she becomes controlled, guarded. That guardedness is often mistaken for disinterest by men who expect enthusiasm to be loud. Watch how she handles tension. A woman who doesn't care avoids resolution. She distracts herself and moves on. A woman who is obsessed seeks clarity without confrontation. She brings things up gently, indirectly, sometimes playfully, because what she's really asking is, are we still okay? Notice how she listens when you talk about struggles, not just relationships, but life pressure, doubt, fatigue. If she leans in emotionally instead of rushing to fix things, that isn't just empathy. That's investment. Emotional labor is expensive. When she gives it freely and consistently, attachment has already formed. Her jealousy, too, is subtle. Not accusatory, not dramatic. She gathers information, asks neutral questions, watches patterns. This isn't control, it is calibración. She's orienting herself emotionally. Another powerful sign, she shares unfinished parts of herself. Contradictions, doubts, unresolved thoughts. That isn't performance, it's intimacy before romance. And notice how she responds to your boundaries. A woman who isn't invested pushes or ignores them. A woman who is obsessed respects them, even when they frustrate her. Your behavior matters here more than you realize. Emotional stability allows obsession to mature. Neediness destabilizes it. Female obsession isn't about control, it's about emotional orientation. You become the internal reference point. Most men never experience this because they rush certainty instead of cultivating depth. If you're noticing these signs, something real is forming beneath the surface, not loudly, but durably. And here's where it gets quietly powerful. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she begins measuring other men against you without realizing it. You become the standard. Attention from others lands flatter. Conversations feel thinner, not because others changed, but because you reshaped her expectations. She may start checking in with you emotionally before decisions, not for permission, but alignment. Your perspective matters. Over time, she reacts to your absence not with panic, but reflection. She doesn't replace you quickly. She sits with the feeling, a sign of deep attachment. She may even become more honest with you than with herself, admitting doubts, contradictions, even attraction, she finds embarrassing. That honesty only appears when she trusts you not to weaponize her truth. Conflict changes too. She stops trying to win and starts trying to preserve connection, not from submission, but value recognition. The bond matters more than being right, but hear this clearly. Female obsession is responsive. It thrives next to emotional sovereignty. The moment you make her the center of your identity, not because she wants distance, but because she wants a man who is already whole. The most desired men aren't trying to be desired. They focus on purpose, alignment, and emotional clarity. That creates gravity on the other side. So the question isn't, how do I keep her obsessed? It's, am I someone worth staying attached to long term? Because obsession without respect fades. Obsession with respect transforms. If this hit close to home, it's because you're naming patterns you always felt. And naming them gives you power, not over her, but over yourself. At this stage, something even more telling happens. Her emotional safety ties itself to your consistency, not your promises, not your words, your patterns. She watches how you show up when there's nothing to gain. When you're tired, distracted, under pressure, anyone can be charming when they want something. Very few remain grounded when life pulls them elsewhere. Over time, she becomes less reactive around you, less volatile. Not because interest fades, but because her nervous system settles. Real obsession stabilizes, it doesn't escalate. She gives you the benefit of the doubt automatically. Silence feels like space, not rejection. She trusts your return. She associates you with regulation, calm, relief. Not because you fix her problems, but because you don't amplify them. She adjusts her schedule quietly, creates availability without announcing it. That's investment without leverage. But here's the warning. Many men relax too much at this stage. They stop leading, become complacent. Safety without direction erodes attraction. Emotional safety doesn't mean passivity. It means reliability without predictability. Presence without consumption. A woman who is obsessed still wants to respect and admire you. Admiration only survives when you remain aligned with your purpose. The question she's constantly asking internally is simple. Can I fall here without losing myself? Your behavior answers that every day. When you show self-control, integrity, and consistency, obsession deepens into devotion. When you show insecurity or ego, she protects herself even if feelings remain. The strongest connections don't feel frantic. They feel grounded, slow burning, intentional. And the final truth most men never hear is this. When a woman is secretly obsessed, she doesn't feel trapped by her feelings. She feels chosen by them. That only happens when a man represents emotional safety, direction, and self-respect at the same time. At this stage, attachment becomes internal. She doesn't need constant interaction to feel connected. You exist in her mind. Your words replay. Your values influence how she sees herself. She stops trying to impress you and starts being real. Her humor loosens. Her flaws appear without apology. She celebrates your growth instead of competing with it. Your progress bonds her instead of threatening her. She protects the dynamic itself, choosing restraint without being asked. That level of self-regulation only appears after attachment crosses a serious threshold. But remember this. The moment you rely on her obsession for your sense of worth, it begins to decay. Female obsession thrives beside masculine self-sufficiency and collapses next to emotional dependence. The healthiest dynamic is when she wants you deeply but doesn't need you to survive emotionally, and you enjoy her without building your identity around her attention. So if you're seeing these signs, your role isn't to test her, pressure her, or demand clarity. Your role is to remain who you were when the attachment began, gone calm, purposeful, emotionally regulated, self-respect. Because obsession doesn't survive reassurance, it survives consistency and quiet strength. Now, I'll leave you with one question. On a scale from 1 to Ds, how emotionally grounded are you when someone you care about starts pulling closer? Write your number in the comments. I read them. And if this helped you see something you've been missing, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it but doesn't know how to ask. Some truths change how you date. Others change who you become.